Today's subject is car paint scratch. The problem is, not all scratches are created equal. Right here, we have what I would call transfer. How do I know this? Because I've already felt it. And when you feel a scratch, that's the very first thing you want to do is feel it. And what you're feeling for is to try and determine if it is something that is above the paint or below the paint. If it's below the paint, then it's a true scratch. If it's above the paint, then it's possible what it's called transfer, meaning whatever hit this has left some material behind. It's what's called paint transfer. So you scrape it, and this feels, and I can catch the edge, and actually some of my fingernail is actually removing it. I just want to take you one by one on the many different types of scratches on this truck. We have a scratch right here above my nail. We have another one that's even less visible right here above my nail. Here we have a significant scratch because I can actually get my fingernail into the valley. Here we have a combination of scratches. Who knows how this happened? Here we have another one. We have another one. Because it's so long, you can guarantee that the scratch is never going to be completely uniformed in depth from start to finish. So along here it might be deeper, then shallow, deeper, shallow. You get the point. So I'm going to take you to one more additional scratch, which is on top of the roof. Now this is the most significant of all because it's actually gone through the clear coat, the base coat, all the way to the metal, and it's now actually started to rust. This is the most extreme situation. In order to fix this, we would have to remove the rust first. I'm not really going to go into that because that's not going to be the typical scratch that most of you will be dealing with. These products represent your first point of entry. The more superficial the scratch is, obviously, the better results you're going to get and the easier it will be to fix it. What I use, and I start off with, is Mr. Clean's Magic Eraser. But something you need to know about this tool is that it indeed will abrade the paint. Now that's different than scratching the paint. It's not going to leave individual scratches like these, but that's pretty easy fix. Now if it's truly heavy duty transfer, like let's say a door opened onto this truck and left some paint from its car and burnished it through friction onto it, it may be more difficult to remove. This is your first point of entry, and any type of liquid will suffice. So all I'm going to do is determine if indeed we have transfer or not. Now I don't know if it's showing up, but just that slight action that I just did actually has dulled this finish. I'm okay with that because I can fix it very easily. It has already diminished these scratches here, but I can still grab my nail to it, so I know that if I want complete removal of these scratches, I'm going to have to wet sand them away. But this pad did remove the transfer. It's gone. So what I can do is I can now take with my cloth something like, for example, this Scratch X 2.0. What you're looking for is some type of product with an abrasive to it. Now a way to demonstrate or to test that is to put a little between your fingernails and see if you can feel a little gritty feel to it, because we want a little bit of a grit. We want something that's literally going to do some level of sanding or polishing. I'm going to put a little dab on this cloth and rub it around. And I'm using pretty aggressive pressure. Wipe it clean, and now all the abrasions that I left with the Magic Eraser are gone. Now it probably isn't showing from there, but these two scratches have diminished to the point where most people would walk by this truck and never ever even notice those. So for most people's world, that's all you need to even think about. So at this point, it could be as simple as now put a little cleaner wax on there, and that will restore even additional shine and leave a layer of protection on the paint. Another common product is the polishing compound, but what it really means, kind of pasty, and it has some form of abrasives to it. Now honestly, this compound by Turtle Wax, if I put it between my fingernails and rub it, I virtually don't feel any type of abrasive to it. So in my opinion, if I read the directions, it might say something about the fact that it may scratch or may be clear coat safe, which would suggest that it has no actual abrasives. So this may in fact just be purely a chemical cleaner. Not that this one didn't work, because it does. And it's ideal for all those little miscellaneous scratches, like around door handles where your fingernails catch. It is very effective for just touching up your car on those scratches or rub marks or scuffs. Normal washing and waxing won't eliminate. Okay, what I'm going to do is we've got two scratches. We've got here and then we've got over here. These scratches I'm going to work on are just part of a bigger combination of scratches. What I have here is 2000 grit. Now you can get sandpaper that goes up to 3000. What you have to worry about is a couple things. For example, whenever you do what's called wet sanding or color sanding, and the reason they call it wet sanding is not usually, but you do use it with some form of water. What the water does, or the liquid, in this case all I'm using is quick detailer just to lubricate it and keep it flowing. And what the liquid does is it allows the sanded material to flow and not clog up the paint. The point is because this is an older truck, the clear coat will have already become thinner than when it was original. Now I know there's paint gauges that you can use to measure the thickness of the paint. The problem is that's going to measure the thickness between the metal panel and the top coat. How do you know how thick the actual clear coat is? Once you sand through or polish through the clear coat, it will change the color of the base coat. Now I've heard about some paint thickness gauges or meters that can actually measure the thickness of the clear coat only. The point is that I'm going to use some common sense and experience and know that I can roughly sand just a few times on this, because I already know that this truck is old enough that I don't want to go through the clear coat. And I'm using light pressure just to sand this area. And then I'm going to sand over here, light pressure, because these are very small scratches, and anything more than light pressure and heavy duty color sanding would not be appropriate due to the age of this truck. I'm allowing the sandpaper to do its job, which is to cut through and to create what's called a uniformed scratch pattern. And because it's not a big panel, I'm not worried about using a backing plate to keep this perfectly flat. That would be overthinking the moment, and it's just not a requirement for these little spot scratches. So now that this is dried, what you're looking at is actually the clear coat that has been sanded away. And if you do this, you will see the area that is now completely sanded and abraded up. There's still a visible scratch here. Now, because I'm being very cautious, for one, it's not my truck, and two, based on the year of the truck, and I did no measuring of the paint, I'm merely trying to improve the scratch and see if it will remove it. Like right now I can't grab anything. There's no edge to catch. So I know that perhaps now I can polish this enough where it will diminish it to the point that it's acceptable results. This is still showing very slight traces of the original scratch. Now at this point, many of you will lack a buffer in order to remove these scratches. It's possible to remove it by hand, but you will have to spend a lot of elbow grease. So I'm going to try two products. One is Meguiar's 105. It's their Ultra Cut Compound. And now I'm applying lots of pressure because I want to remove those scratches, and I'm not using a buffer. I'm simply doing it by hand. And you can already see that the shine is starting to be restored. Unfortunately, our scratch is still there. And that's kind of the ironic moment of doing scratch repair or removal, is that sometimes you will actually enhance the scratch. If you cannot take it to complete removal, what you will do is, because this area will be so shined up and perfect, you actually create a greater contrast between the scratch itself and the surrounding material. At this point, I can either take my chances, do a little more color sanding, see if I can eliminate it 100%. Like I said, for demonstration purposes, I'm not really worried about moving it 100%. I just want you guys to understand the different variables of scratches. Now over here, I'm going to use a different product, which is the Menzerna. It's a high performance compound. So I'm going to pick another section of my cloth and I'm going to aggressively, and notice I'm doing this in the direct sunlight. This paint is probably, I don't know, I put it maybe 105, 110 degrees. So it's not cool paint, but that's the cool thing about these products today is that they actually will work in direct sunlight, even though the directions as a rule will always say use in shaded cool surfaces. So there I have that polished area, and in fact it looks like it sanded and polished away 100% of the scratches that I dealt with right through here. This one not so much. Follow up with a polish, a true polish, and you'll notice like this Meguiar's 205, which is meant to follow the 105, and you'll see on the scale it goes up to a level 4. Once again, heavy duty pressure. And indeed it does enhance the overall beauty and appearance of this panel, even more so because it's a finer polish. You can in fact do this at home on your own and improve the quality and appearance of your car. Now this is the Menzerna Superior Performance Polish. So I'm going to squeeze a little on that. Go back over this area. Once again, I'm using heavy pressure, probably, if you had to guess, maybe 15 to 20 pounds of pressure. Once again in the direct sunlight, and voila, both areas have been improved and enhanced. Okay, I want to zoom in so you can see our scratch here right above my fingernail. I don't know what best angle is going to show that scratch, but it still remains. But over here, I was able to wet sand and polish away the scratches that were part of this bigger group of scratches. So right here is our results, which we have achieved 100% elimination of the scratches. So with that said, what did we learn today? Not all scratches are created equal.